So we're down here on the ground. We got the wedge. If you guys haven't seen a wedge, what basically these have is a little groove here, wedge shaped. There's a few different types, different heights. I'm going to teach you guys how to use this today for a thoracic spine mobilization. So actually my spinous process sits in there. So that bump that sticks out on your spine sits inside the wedge. And I'm going to show you an interesting way that we use the wedge different than how others use them. I like to start at the top. I give myself a big hug. I keep my cervical spine in neutral. I'm not letting my head extend back. I'm here and I just kind of little tiny extension over it. See, I'm not letting my whole back pick up. Nice little extension over it just to get warmed up to it in that upper thoracic region. Once I kind of feel what it feels like, I'll do one of two things. I'll either come here and give a little traction, push through over top of it. And I don't need a huge movement over the wedge because I extend only a few degrees at each segment. So now I come here, I give a traction at this segment, I give a little tiny arch over the wedge, then I'll move down a segment, get myself set up, traction, little extension. I keep my low back, my lumbar spine out of extension. I keep it almost in a posterior tilt where I tuck my butt under to allow all the motion to happen at that thoracic motion segment that's hanging off the edge of that wedge. And I'll go about 3/4 down. And if I want, give a little traction, support the neck. Now, once I've gone through all these, I can either go back up the spine, work my way segment by segment. I'm going this much between each repetition because that's about what I need. And sometimes I may not be exactly on that or in the junction between that motion segment, but I'll move a 1/2 inch and now I am. So I'll go up and down to about here. You know, you're not going to go all the way down to where your lumbar region is. You got hypermobility often in these lower discs, these lower facet joints as a result of disc degeneration or habitual patterns of movement. So I'm going to stay in those mid to upper region. And once I kind of do it, I can activate in and out of that range. So, you know, if you're an overhead athlete, throwing athlete, or you're working with a throwing athlete, you just had them self-mobilized, maybe you mobilized them with some PA mobs in the table. Now I've got 2 dumbbells, an 8-pounder and a 10-pounder, whatever they are. I put the heavier one in their dominant side. I have them chin tucked so they got their head in a good position and their cervical spine in a good position. From here, I let them use the weights to actually extend over that segment, and then I serratus press, little abdominal crunch out of it. Give it 3 reps, move it a little bit. Now I'm really up there in the top. Exhalation over the wedge. Sorry. Inhalation over the wedge. Exhalation on the way out. And I'll hit every segment that I've mobilized with the wedge here. I like it more than the foam roller because it actually is a little bit more comfortable when you can set your spinous processes in there. And it also is more specific because I can line this wedge up with the very segments that I feel like aren't moving well. And traditionally, that's the upper thoracic segments. You know, you're thinking T1 through T5 typically don't move very well, but they need to move well if I have any sort of rotational thing. Throwing, volleyball, anything. You know, I need that upper thoracic mobility and extension. So give it a try. Wedges, something that I think that everybody should have and everyone should use for their thoracic extension, thoracic mobilizations.